Akiteru was a high school boy with an unusual view of love. To him, affection wasn't something expressed through teasing or playful provocation. While others found joy in taunting the ones they liked, he believed sincerity carried far more weight. He preferred to treat those he cared about with warmth and kindness, convinced that genuine gestures spoke louder than jokes. Yet his heart betrayed him in curious ways. Despite his gentle ideals, he found himself drawn to bold, outspoken girls. The contrast between his beliefs and his desires amused him, but he never wavered from his conviction that love should be shown through care, not mockery. One evening, as he made his way back to his room, Akiteru heard a faint noise from behind the door. When he opened it, he was greeted by an unexpected sight. Iroha Kohinata, his classmate, and the younger sister of his friend Ozuma, lounging comfortably inside without permission. Annoyed, he unplugged the television, prompting Iroha to complain that he should have knocked first. Akiteru reminded her that it was his room and she had no reason to be there. But Iroha argued back with her usual sharp wit, claiming he must have known she was inside. She teased him relentlessly, questioning what he would have done if she had been changing and accusing him of wanting to see her naked, even threatening to call the police. Unfazed, Akiteru countered that she was technically trespassing. Iroha, never one to back down, smirked and claimed the law would still favor her side. She then suggested he secretly enjoyed her company, holding up a key he had once given her as supposed proof that he didn't mind her visits. Akiteru quickly corrected her, saying it was never meant for that purpose. Amused, Iroha continued to push his buttons, joking that he would lie on the bed after she left just to smell her scent. Irritated, Akiteru declared that he would erase every trace of her presence the moment she stepped out. Pretending to be offended, Iroha called herself his little sister, though Akiteru firmly denied any such bond. She then reasoned that since she was Ozuma's sister, that technically made her his sister-in-law. Akiteru dismissed the claim as absurd, insisting they were strangers. But Iroha, lost in her imagination, added that if he ever married her brother, they would indeed become siblings. Her nonsensical logic left Akiteru exasperated, and he told her to stop fantasizing about impossible things. Before the argument could continue, Akiteru received a call from his boss, who also happened to be his uncle, Tsukunomi. Hoping to avoid embarrassment, he asked Iroha to stay quiet during the conversation. Tsukunomi began by mentioning Akiteru's bold request to join his company without going through the standard hiring process. Expecting rejection, Akiteru braced himself, but his uncle surprised him by agreeing, but not without a few conditions. Tsukunomi's first question was whether Akiteru had a girlfriend. Unfortunately, Iroha overheard and began making suspicious noises in the background, making it sound like he wasn't alone. Thinking quickly, Akiteru claimed that he had adopted a cat, which managed to convince his uncle that he was still single. After ending the call, Akiteru scolded Iroha for almost ruining his chance at a professional opportunity. The next day at school, Akiteru ran into Ozuma, Iroha's brother and one of his closest friends. During their conversation, Ozuma mentioned that his sister might actually like Akiteru. The idea seemed ridiculous to him. He dismissed it outright, saying that Iroha only enjoyed messing with him. But Ozuma explained that this was precisely how his sister showed affection, through teasing. The comment reminded Akiteru of the theory he once rejected, that people often tease those they love. Still, he couldn't bring himself to believe it, insisting that someone like Iroha would never fall for an average guy like him. Later that day, after classes ended, a student approached Akiteru to tell him that a beautiful first-year girl wanted to meet him. Curious, he went to see who it was, only to find Iroha waiting for him. To his surprise, she was acting unusually polite and refined, trying to pass herself off as a model student. Akiteru, recognizing her act immediately, could tell she was putting on a show. Iroha ignored his disapproval and asked him to walk home with her. He told her to wait so he could grab his things and call Ozuma to join them, but she quickly stopped him, insisting she wanted to go home with him alone. Her straightforwardness made him suspicious once again, and he'd assumed she was trying to mess with him. He told her to stop flirting if she didn't mean it, since he didn't want anyone toying with his feelings. Instead of backing off, Iroha raised her voice and declared to everyone nearby that the two of them were dating. Her sudden announcement shocked their classmates and left Akiteru speechless, flipping the situation so that he looked like the one deceiving her. Moments later, Ozuma approached to see what was happening. Iroha claimed that she and Akiteru were dating but were currently going through a rough patch. Akiteru, bewildered, pulled her aside to ask what she was trying to accomplish. Iroha simply repeated her claim, saying that since his uncle had already asked about his love life, she might as well play the role of his girlfriend. Then with a smirk, she mocked him, saying it was strange for someone as ordinary as him to date someone like her. Still, she insisted that pretending to be a couple would make things simpler for everyone. Akiteru, humiliated by her words, refused outright, saying his only focus was on his future. But Iroha suddenly changed her tone. She grabbed his arm and her voice trembling. told him he was so focused on his goals that he forgot about the people who cared for him. Her emotional shift caught him off guard, but before he could respond, she laughed it off and revealed that she was only joking. She mocked him for falling for it, teasing that he must have started believing her. Frustrated, Akiteru told himself never to trust anything she said again. That evening, Tsukinami invited Akiteru to a cafe for a meeting, mentioning that a third person would be joining them. During their discussion, Tsukinami praised the game Akiteru and his small development team had created, noting that it had already surpassed 1 million downloads. Akiteru, however, felt there was still plenty of room for improvement, comparing his team's work to that of major studios. Tsukinami reminded him that their accomplishment was extraordinary for such a small group. Eventually, Akiteru asked about the conditions Tsukinami had hinted at during their last conversation. Before answering, his uncle's attention drifted toward a waitress and he began flirting with her, making the woman visibly uncomfortable. Taking the chance to excuse himself, Akiteru went to the restroom only to accidentally bump into a girl who had entered by mistake. When he returned to the table, he realized that the same girl was the third person Tsukinami had mentioned earlier. To his surprise, it was Mashiro Tsukinami, his cousin and Tsukinomi's daughter. Still confused about the situation, Akiteru listened as Tsukinami revealed his plan. Since Mashiro would soon transfer to a co-ed school, he wanted Akiteru to pose as her boyfriend to keep other boys from approaching her. Though the idea seemed absurd, Akiteru reluctantly agreed. Mashiro, hesitant but with little choice, accepted as well. With both in agreement, Tsukinami finalized the deal, warning Akiteru not to forget that Mashiro was only a pretend girlfriend, and that any genuine affection toward her would lead to serious consequences. It was, as he put it, like asking a wolf to guard the sheep, trusting instinct, not to betray reason. Under the shade of a sprawling tree, a young red-haired noblewoman named Melfi enjoyed a peaceful afternoon, savoring a sandwich with evident delight. An older nobleman approached, intrigued by the aroma of her meal. Unable to resist, he requested a taste. With a gentle smile, Melfi opened her basket, offering him a selection of her creations. The man chose one resembling hers and took a bite, immediately enchanted by its perfect seasoning and rich umami flavor. However, when he asked what kind of meat it contained, Melfi calmly answered that it was backhorn, a monster notorious for its deadly poison. The revelation made the nobleman stagger back and vomit against a nearby tree, horrified that he had eaten such a creature. While he fled in disgust, Melfi continued eating, unbothered. To her, monster meat was a challenge and a passion. With the right preparation, even the most dangerous beasts could be turned into delicacies. Though others found her obsession disturbing, she believed someone someday would understand. Days later, she attended a grand banquet in Praven Park, hosted by King Langdihaz to celebrate the autumn harvest. The event gathered nobles from across the kingdom, serving as an opportunity to showcase culinary achievements and, more importantly, for young aristocrats to seek suitable partners. Melfi, the daughter of a count, was among them, though her purpose there was far from voluntary. Her stepmother had warned her that if she failed to find a fiancé within the year, she would be sent to a convent. Even her father, worn down by worry, agreed to accept any decent suitor. Despite her family's pressure, Melfi found no joy in the event. Her peers whispered behind their fans, calling her unapproachable despite her beauty. Tired of their judgmental gazes, she quietly slipped away from the crowd and wandered toward the area where knights gathered. Perhaps she thought she could meet someone who didn't already know of her strange reputation. Her solitude was soon broken by a terrified scream. A monstrous creature had appeared, a backhorn identical to the kind she once cooked. Panic swept through the park as nobles fled in every direction. Amid the chaos, Melfi noticed an elderly couple struggling to escape. The man's cane had snapped, leaving him unable to move. Without hesitation, she rushed to help them. But before they could flee, the backhorn reared up behind her, its venomous fangs glistening. Fear surged through her as she realized her mistake. She had failed to find a fiancé, and now she might die trying to save strangers. Yet before the creature could strike, a silver-haired man appeared in a flash, cutting through the beast with a single precise swing. The monster fell lifeless at his feet. The man was Reijou, the infamous blood-mad duke, known for his unrelenting thirst for battle and rumored insanity. His cold demeanor and crimson-stained blades struck fear in everyone who saw him. Yet to Melfi, his composure and strength were mesmerizing. As the guards secured the area, Reijou turned his gaze toward her. Melfi, covered in dirt and blood, noticed traces of blackened monster ichor near his mouth. Concerned, she stepped forward and insisted that backhorn blood was dangerously toxic when swallowed. Reijou studied her curiously as she explained the nature of monster corruption, how the blood of maddened beasts was tainted with magic toxins, while the flesh of calmer creatures could be rendered harmless through careful preparation. Her words flowed with confidence, her knowledge revealing years of strange culinary experimentation. Intrigued, Rogier offered her purified water to cleanse any lingering toxins and ordered his men to prepare clean clothes for her. When Melfi mentioned she had butchered a beast just a week earlier, his composure momentarily broke. Her calm admission confirmed what he had heard. She was the eccentric noblewoman rumored to feast on monsters known throughout the kingdom as the voracious villainess. In this world, monsters were more than beasts. They were magical entities infused with unstable energy. Their flesh was feared because consuming it could bring illness, madness, or death. Most people disposed of monster carcasses immediately after slaying them. But Melfi was different. Her fascination with food drove her to challenge those taboos, perfecting techniques to bleed out toxins and transform forbidden meat into exquisite cuisine. Rogier, rather than recoiling, seemed captivated by her unusual hobby. As they walked together away from the chaos, he asked about the flavor and texture of such meats. Melfi described backhorn flesh as rich and hearty, akin to wild beef, yet requiring precise tenderization to soften its fibers. When properly prepared, it could be roasted or stewed into something divine. Rogier listened intently, piecing together her method and realizing the truth behind the rumors. She was not a villainess at all, but an innovator unafraid of the unknown. For the first time, Melfi found someone who listened without judgment. Her passion, often met with mockery, was now received with genuine curiosity. Rogier even asked her to prepare a meal for him one day. The unexpected request made her heart stir in a way she had never felt before. Later, at the House of Galbraith Pavilion, Rogier arranged for her to rest while the servant, Costeleforgue, fetched a change of clothes borrowed from the royal wardrobe. As she waited, Rogier washed away the remnants of battle nearby, his well-built frame illuminated by the soft glow of lanterns. Melfi, though accustomed to seeing hunters clean themselves after fights, found herself quietly captivated by his presence. Despite her protests, Rogier insisted she use the water first. Their actions mirrored one another, each showing care, each uncertain how to express it. When she asked about the possibility of learning to fight monsters herself, Rogier dismissed the idea gently, suggesting she leave the dangers of battle to him. Instead, he promised to bring her whatever rare beasts she desired to cook. The air between them grew warmer as they shared the quiet space. Yet their moment was interrupted when Kos returned, horrified to find his master half-dressed before an unmarried woman. He scolded Rogier for his lack of propriety, prompting the Duke to laugh lightly before turning away. Melfi soon emerged wearing a fresh floral gown, its fine embroidery reflecting her elegance. Rogier's men stared in disbelief when she praised him for slaying the monster. Most ladies would have fainted at such a sight, but she only admired him more. As dusk settled, Rogier presented the severed monster head to her, expecting disgust. Instead, she examined it with fascination, noting the clean precision of his blade. The soldiers exchanged amused glances, quietly acknowledging that the two might be perfectly matched in their peculiarities. Before parting, Rogier promised to bring her a royal noodle, a rare beast known for its delicate marbled flesh, the next time they met. The mere thought made her stomach flutter with anticipation. She reminded him that the creature's flavor would improve if captured alive, a challenge he accepted with an approving smile. Despite his fearsome reputation, Melfi now saw the truth. Rogier was not a monster, but a man burdened by false rumors, much like herself. As she prepared to depart, Melfi offered him a small basket filled with jerky made from skitspit, a beast native to her family's lands. Rogier accepted immediately and took a bite, savoring the savory umami that spread across his tongue. His loyal servant panicked, fearing poison, and demanded that the Duke spit it out. Amused, Rogier instead shared the jerky with him. Kos reluctantly tasted it and was astonished by its depth of flavor, declaring it delicious. For Melfi, this was a moment she had never experienced before. All her life, people had recoiled from her creations, calling her cursed, unladylike, or insane. Yet now, a feared Duke and his servant were praising her cooking without hesitation. As her carriage pulled away, she hid her tears behind the window curtain. Rogier waved as the carriage rolled down the dirt road, his expression softening. To him, she was no villainess, only a woman misunderstood by her peers, much like himself. Though she assumed he was merely being polite, he found himself looking forward to their next encounter. That evening, the moonlight reflected across the fallen Backhorn's remains, marking the beginning of an unlikely bond between two outcasts, a blood-soaked Duke and a monster-eating noblewoman, who, through their shared eccentricities, discovered a strange and gentle connection. By the time Melfi Marchelray returned to her family's territory, winter had already taken hold. At the estate gates, her father awaited her, something that rarely happened. He rushed forward as her carriage stopped, the cold air mixing with his breath as he asked what on earth she had done. Melfi was confused, still adjusting from the journey, but before she could speak, he reminded her of her position as a lady of the Marchelray family and of what was expected of her. The question of why the Duke of Galbraith had sent a proposal for her hand was beyond his comprehension. Melfi, startled, misunderstood at first, thinking the Duke sought her literal hands for some strange task, but realization soon struck. Her father explained that the Duke of Galbraith himself had formally asked for her hand in marriage, leaving him baffled and unsure how to respond. Melfiora felt her heart pound as the cold seeped into her skin, realizing how serious this was. Elsewhere, Aristide Rogier du Galbraith reported to Crown Prince Maxim du Liverstole Merd Langdias about the recent hunt. The Duke had handled a monster den filled with toxic beasts and fulfilled his duties without a single casualty. Maxim, ever casual despite his royal demeanor, reminded Aristide that he preferred being called Brother Maxim, as they once did in childhood. Aristide refused the familiarity, keeping a clear boundary between royal family and subject, even though they shared blood. Maxim, amused, turned his attention to the basket Aristide held. Though Aristide dismissed it as nothing, Maxim's keen curiosity revealed it contained scatsbit jerky, a rare delicacy made from small monsters. Tasting it, he praised the flavor and teased his younger brother, knowing it was made by the infamous voracious villainess. Aristide corrected him, giving her full name, Melfiora Marchelraid. The Crown Prince found the situation intriguing, playfully suggesting that the usually stoic Duke might have found someone who could stir his heart. Aristide left the tent, refusing to engage, but his brother's words lingered. As he rode through the woods, Aristide reflected on the fiery-haired woman who had faced danger without fear. He remembered her courage and the spark in her eyes as she confronted the monster, unflinching even as its blood stained her dress. There was something extraordinary about her. How such a bold spirit existed within such a delicate frame. It had been a long time since anyone left such an impression on him. His subordinate, Kostela Forg, later reported that they had secured the Backhorn's habitat and that hunting had been suspended by royal decree. Aristide ordered that all hunts remain halted, not wanting more unnecessary killing. Kos, quick with words, teased the Duke about whether Lady Melfiora would attend their future banquets. Aristide, suspecting Kos of telling Maxim about their encounter, received only a sleek grin in response. Alone again, he thought of Melfiora's tears from that day, vowing never to let her wear that expression again. Back in the Marchelraid estate, Melfiora was still trying to process everything. Her father mentioned that the Duke's letter had arrived a week prior, delivered on the back of a blazing eagle adorned with the Galbraith crest. The extravagant gesture left her both impressed and jealous, wishing she could have seen the magnificent creature herself. When questioned about the banquet, her explanation remained unchanged. The Duke had saved her from a magic beast. Yet, the content of his letter was even more surprising. The Duke of Galbraith expressed gratitude for their time together and formally requested her hand in marriage. The Marchelraid family could not reject a noble of such standing without reason, though both father and daughter suspected the proposal might hide other motives. Later that night, Melfiora pondered the meaning behind the proposal. They had only met once at the banquet, bonding not over courtly matters, but over a shared curiosity for monster cuisine. It suddenly dawned on her that the Duke, a man of prestige and solitude, had no one who shared his fascination with such things. She could understand that loneliness, how thrilling passions felt meaningless when unshared. Wanting to bridge that isolation, she decided she would treat his letter as a gesture of mutual understanding rather than politics. As she thought so, the jeweled letter case began to glow and a magical message unfolded. Aristide's recorded voice explained how dull the banquet felt after she left and how his subordinate Kos had eaten the jerky she made, much to his regret. He ended the message by saying he would visit her before the end of winter, on the 18th day of Sirius, which was tomorrow. Melfiora's heart raced. It was no wonder her father had been so flustered. The Duke was coming to visit in person. Lying in bed that night, Melfiora held a framed portrait of her late mother. Her mother had once dreamed of enriching the harsh lands they ruled, researching ways to make monster meat edible and sustainable for the people. Melfiora had inherited that dream. She would prove to the world that even monsters could bring nourishment if treated properly. Her next step was clear: to perfect her culinary research and make her mother's vision a reality. Still, her thoughts drifted back to the Duke's words, and her pulse quickened with anticipation. The following morning, Melfiora's stepmother, Countess Cilia, stormed into her room, scolding her for not being ready to greet their noble guest. Melfiora hesitated, uncertain how to explain that she had only just awoken. The air trembled moments later with a deafening roar outside. Melfiora rushed to the window, her breath catching at the sight of a formation of glacial dragons circling above the estate. At their head rode Aristide Rogier du Galbraith, the Duke himself, descending with the grandeur befitting his title. As he approached her window, he announced his purpose: to claim her hand and to deliver the gift he had promised. Melfiora directed him to land the dragons in the northern pasture while she composed herself. The image of the Duke astride the dragon lingered in her mind, his poise, his command of the magnificent beasts. She had never seen glacial dragons before, creatures so unlike the dragonlings native to her homeland. Her stepmother, still reeling from the spectacle, demanded to know what was happening. Upon learning of the Duke's arrival, Celia grew furious, calling him the blood-mad Duke and accusing him of arrogance for riding dragons into their lands. Melfiora, however, calmly announced her decision. She intended to accept the Duke's proposal with pleasure. Outside, Melfiora met Aristide for the first time since the banquet. Despite the biting cold, she felt a warmth spread through her chest. She explained she had just returned from the capital and had little time to prepare. Aristide's aide, Kos, apologized for the unannounced visit, admitting the Duke had been too eager to wait. Aristide examined Melfiora's hair, noting its fluffy texture, though she considered it untamable. When he asked where to deliver his gift, she led him toward the pasture. To her astonishment, he revealed a massive bag that seemed to move. Peering inside, she froze in awe. Before her was a royal moodle, a rare golden-furred variant of a species usually white, bearing twin spiral horns and a sharp central one. Such beasts were prized for their pelts, but their meat was often discarded. The sight of one alive offered as a gift nearly brought her to tears. Aristide placed her hand over the creature's chest, letting her feel its heartbeat. It was only sleeping, subdued by magic. The realization overwhelmed her with gratitude. She imagined the ways she could prepare it, grilled, stewed, or roasted. Every part could contribute to her research. Moments later, Melfiora's father arrived to greet the Duke properly. In the excitement, she nearly forgot the true reason for his visit, the marriage proposal. When she requested permission for the dragons to hunt in the Bartos Mountains, her father agreed but wondered whether the moodle was food for them. The Duke clarified that it was a gift for Melfiora. Her father, astonished, realized the Duke already understood his daughter's unique interests. She requested that the research facility, her late mother's laboratory, be reopened for demonstration. Aristide supported her immediately, declaring that he understood her dedication despite the unflattering rumors surrounding her. His commitment remained firm. When her father learned that the moodle was still alive, he was even more surprised. The Duke expressed his wish to see how the creature would be prepared, and permission was granted. Riding the glacial dragon together, Melfiora guided Aristide to the research facility. The wind whipped through her crimson hair, and the dragon's wings shimmered under the pale winter sun. She found the creature's low rumbling surprisingly endearing, and her earlier nervousness began to fade. Approaching the building her mother had once filled with life and ambition, she felt a mix of excitement and dread. The future of her research, and perhaps her heart, now rested on how the Duke would perceive it. She wanted him to see her world for what it was, not just the product of scandalous rumors, but a legacy of innovation and compassion.